Hello, everybody. Good morning. I just had to do a double check, make sure it was still morning time, and it is. Thank you all for joining us here at the chamber event, talking with some local financial institutions. I'm Leila Melendez. I'm the CEO of Workforce Solutions Borderplex, and with me today are three guests from some local financial banks and credit unions that I'd like to welcome and thank you all for joining us. If we can go around the room, if you will, or the table or the screen and introduce yourself and let us know who's with us today.
I guess I'll go first. My name is Karl Murphy. I'm the president and CEO of FirstLight Federal Credit Union.
Hi, my name is Arlene Carroll, and I'm Senior Vice President, Commercial Lending with WestStar Bank.
Max Villaronga, and I'm the president and CEO with TFCU.
Very good. Thank you all. We're so happy that you all took the time out of your very busy day and to visit with us today and to share some really important information with our business community and to lend some insight. So thank you all again. There are several things that I wanted to talk about today and get your input on and some feedback. But first and foremost, we've got both a bank and a couple of credit unions on the line. Can we just start with a really basic question? Like, what is the difference between a bank, WestStar Bank, and a credit union? Can you just, I often sometimes get that question and hear that myself. So does somebody want to just jump out and start with that one?
Yeah, probably the biggest difference, both are financial institutions. Credit unions are a financial cooperative, which means that our members are owners of the credit union. Banks are owned by shareholders. Our members vote on board members. Our members, generally credit unions, because of that, are able to offer lower fees. But it is democratically run and that our members are the owners. And so that's probably the biggest difference. And because of that, the decision-making process, the things that drive credit unions are a little bit different than what drives banks. And so, as I said, generally fees are a little bit cheaper. Interest rates are generally a little bit better. But we're both financial institutions, just a little bit different as to how they're run and who the owners of the organization are.
Very good. Thank you. Does anybody want to add to that?
I will say that generally credit unions also have some restrictions in terms of fields of membership. So this started out historically. So for instance, TFCU started off primarily as a teachers credit union about 84 years ago. And about a decade ago, it was able to open up to anybody that lives, works, worships, or goes to school in El Paso County. So it's been able to expand that field of membership over time to serve more people of need. Generally, credit unions and banks, banks will tend to focus a little bit more on business. While generally, again, I'm stereotyping a little bit here, credit unions tend to focus more on consumers. So for instance, we do business lending and business transaction accounts, but it is a minuscule part of our overall operation. So it's mostly a service to our existing members.
And then Max and Karl, correct me if I'm wrong, but are credit unions taxed at a different level than banks are, correct?
So yeah. So we pay a variety of taxes like property tax and payroll tax, but because we're a not-for-profit institution, just like the Girl Scouts, we don't pay on our earnings. So
it makes a difference.
You know, Leila, one of the things I think that's very unique with El Paso, and Arlene can probably attest to this, you know, bank CEOs and bank executives and credit union executives know each other very well. I mean, I've had lunch with several of the CEOs of banks, and even though you have competition, there's still a good relationship between the bank executives and credit union executives. And I don't think you'll find that necessarily in other areas of the country. Arlene, I don't know if you have a a different perspective. At least that's what
Oh, no, absolutely. Absolutely. And you know, with regards to community banks, because of course, you know, WestStar is a locally owned community bank owned by shareholders. And so we're very involved in our community, very in tune with what the market is doing here in El Paso. We do focus a lot on business loans, real estate, commercial, and consistent like SBA and 7A loans and 504 loans. And the benefit about a local financial institution, again, same like the credit unions, is that we're able to make our decisions locally through our bank board, and we're responsive to our clients' needs.
Very good. And thank you. That clears it up for me. And regardless of whether you're a credit union or bank, I mean, you're still held to the same rules and regulations, right? So you all still have to comply with federal requirements and things like that. Is that correct?
So
Absolutely.
yeah, absolutely. There's a couple of different entities that do the regulation, but the regulations tend to be very, very similar. There are some slight nuances in terms of capital requirements and that sort of thing, but at the end of the day, it's very, very similar.
Okay. And I just want to add that, you know, I really want to say thank you on behalf of the community, because I know all three organizations, we can see you all out in the community. You know, you support a lot of local events, a lot of other, you know, organizations and community events and charitable efforts. So I want to thank you all for your commitment to the community, because it's very apparent. So we appreciate that. So I'd like to move on to what our first question. Can you describe to us the biggest adjustment that you had to make at your bank as it related to the pandemic and to COVID kind of impacting this community? What was that biggest adjustment? And was it internal related to your employees, or was it more external related to your clients? But could you describe those adjustments?
Yeah, if I can, I'll go ahead and go first. With regard to WestStar, when this pandemic first happened, well, there was a couple of things. We wanted to make sure that our employees were safe, and so we realigned some of our employees to where some of them are now working remotely out of their homes. Some are working at other branches. We, of course, closed our lobby. But our drive-thrus are open. So from a safety standpoint, that was the primary thing that we did. Secondly, when the PPP loans were first announced, that they were willing to set aside money for that, the government, Rick Francis just immediately said, we've got to do this. We've got to step in and help our community. And I want this to happen within 2 weeks. So everybody scrambled. Everybody got a team of employees together, form this group in order to go ahead and get the applications out to our borrowers and non-customers of the bank, and get the applications out, have them processed, and get the money dispersed out to them. And we all did that within a month. And we still have our team together, because now we're going to be focusing on the forgiveness part. But I would have to say everybody came together, rallied together in order to get the PPP money out. So, and with WestStar, we were able to generate $262 million in PPP loans, over 1,600 applicants, and preserving 44,000 jobs here in the community.
Fantastic.
So I guess I'll jump in here and talk a little bit about what we did. Obviously, we took a very early view on this. So we formed our crisis response team, or pandemic response team, in the middle of March. And at the time, I think even internally, it was viewed that we were being a little bit alarmist about what might happen. But we described it as, look, you know, this is just a great opportunity for us to practice our pandemic response, which has been part of our disaster recovery plan for a number of years. And it was a part that would collect dust, because none of us really thought it would ever happen, right? Well, within about 2 to 3 weeks, it became clear that this was very real, in fact. And so we took a variety of steps because we had formed it so early to acquire supplies for the protection of our team members, everything from masks to gloves, before they became particularly scarce. So we were fortunate from that standpoint that we were viewing it that way. We also took a view early on that this would last about 18 months. And so we prepared for the long haul, and we prepared our team members psychologically and emotionally for a long sort of event. So similarly to Ms. Carroll's points earlier, a lot of our team was mobilized to go and work from their home office. We have about 45% of our team that's able to do that. The rest of our teams are socially distanced within our facilities. We took a position that our lobbies needed to close and needed to remain closed with very minor exceptions. All of our services are available through our drive-throughs, our electronic commerce channels, our ATMs that are deposit accepting, and through our phone-based solutions. And so it really was sort of a retraining of our membership to make sure that they were aware of everything that they can do that way. Because the reality is, in our lobbies, the demographic that likes to physically visit our lobbies is actually the most at risk. So we did not want to put the public and our membership at risk. We serve over 64,000 people locally. So if you can imagine allowing people to congregate in teller lines or for other services, it would put actually the public at risk. So we've continued to keep our lobbies closed. We're evaluating it on a weekly basis to determine when we feel it would be safe to open them. And we've got some other solutions that are appointment-based as well.
Thank you. Karl?
I guess from FirstLight's perspective, many of the things that have already been discussed are some of the things we did. We were concerned both with our staff as well as our members. Many of the things of closing our lobbies to appointment only, focusing on a lot more technology, you know, the mobile, remote banking, remote deposit capture. We implemented kind of video banking to where you can be at home and you can talk to a live person and do transactions that way. You could also, if you didn't feel comfortable doing it from home or didn't have the technology at home, you could make an appointment and come into our lobby and either meet with someone face to face, or if you wanted to do it virtually, you could do it that way too. But we focused externally and tried to make sure we provided the level of service that we provided previous to the pandemic. Obviously, our transaction volume through electronic methods has grown dramatically. Our teller transactions, which now are running through our drive-through specifically, as well as our ITMs or interactive teller machines, is about 60% of what it was prior to COVID. Internally, we were concerned with our employees. That's why we made some modifications to the lobbies. Throughout the whole organization, we've actually installed plexiglass and other things to make sure that we had the equipment available. We probably have, when you take out the retail staff, we probably have 80% of all other staff working from home. We did that fairly early on. It was something that we had very few employees, so that was a big change for us. As to, you know, all the hand sanitizers, the masks, the other things, we provide that to staff. In fact, we even, as things became difficult to purchase for our employees, you know, we were able to get toilet paper and sanitizer and other things and then sell it to our employees at cost. So we tried to both look internal and external. As to the PPP loans, like Arlene said, you know, some of the direction coming out in the website for those loans was really struggling because so many people were in it, but we're able to service our members. I think we did around $10 million in PPP loans. And we had other programs we rolled out to assist our members. and tried to be proactive in letting them know what's available to help them during these times.
Very good, thank you. So something that was of really interest that Max, you mentioned earlier was the demographic of folks that have been used to face-to-face transactions. Certainly that's an impact for us at the Workforce Board. We have centers where folks were used to coming in and having a one-on-one conversation with our counselors. You know, we also had to close and have had to force people to do transactions online. And then now, you know, you're faced also with this coin shortage. I'm seeing signs everywhere. And so you can't, like, cash is harder to come by. So how has that impacted, you know, your client base in one, what do they do if they can't interact with you, or they're not familiar with, you know, technology, how to use an ATM even, and then just the availability of cash? I mean, have you all had to move people into debit cards and maybe we're just resisting using them? What shift did that have?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Our e-commerce side has grown. Transaction counts in our mobile deposit capture and ATM deposit capture are through the roof. The adoption rate of the app is way up because it's a forced adoption. It's everybody's needing to move to that channel. Generally, what we've seen is the resistance isn't, it's simply because there's an initial fear because they don't know yet. So once we're able to coach them through that initial experience and have them make that initial deposit, whether it's at an ATM or on their mobile phone, that fear pretty much starts to dissolve because it's not really that scary. And they start wondering, well, gosh, why have I gone to the teller line and waited for all these years when this is around? So there's a lot of wonderful ways to be able to engage with their own funds and to be able to apply for loans that can keep them safe and allow them to be, you know, socially distanced from others. It's just a training process. So we've had some of our team members literally out in the drive-through just to sort of help people manage right in the beginning. We've had some curbside where it's through initial phone conversation that we initiate that appointment, and then we meet them out for, let's say, a final signature if they don't have an email address where we can do a DocuSign electronically, which is our preference, right? So we say 95% we can do through DocuSign, but sometimes you have resistance to having even an email address, right? So we might still need to help that person out and get a wet signature. Of course, we're going to do that. We're going to go out and help them out. In terms of, you mentioned the coin shortage, most of our branches are outfitted with a heavy duty commercial drawer, so we can accept coin that way and allow that coin exchange to happen. Our in-branch coin exchange is not open right now. That part, certainly our members miss it because we offer that for free for our members. We don't charge a fee. We don't charge a percentage. So they do miss that part of it. But again, for the safety of everyone involved, our team, our team members, our employees, as well as our members in the public, we don't want to have the lobbies as congregation areas.
And let me clarify that the shortage is only on the coin. There's no shortage in currency at all, so I don't want anybody to get concerned about that. As to the coin, the Fed sent out some letters several months ago about coin shortages. The most recent one came out, talked about how they're kind of recovering from that, and it's not really much of an issue. From our standpoint, we haven't had any problem getting coin or providing coin to our members, so it really has had no impact on us. As to the adoption, I agree with Max. One of the reasons we created the virtual offices in our branches, members that come in and don't feel comfortable using some of the technology, we'll sit them in the virtual office and talk to them about it and actually sit there with them and allow them to talk to an employee at the admin building or at one of the branches. And when they come out, they say, wow, that was easy. And we say, well, and you can do it from home. You don't even need to come in. And so we're seeing that once they experience it, they'll begin to use it more. But all the electronic methods has grown dramatically. Even the interactive teller machines we have in the branches and some of them outside the branches, that the activity on those machines are just going much higher than what they were because of the concerns with COVID and the desire to try to service the members. The drive-through continues to do very well. One of the things that's challenging for staff, for example, in the drive-through, every time that drive-through canister comes through, they've got to clean it to protect them as well as the member. And so there's a lot of things like that that are challenging and increasing some of the transaction time just because they're trying to protect themselves and the members.
Very interesting. Thank you. Arlene, was there anything you'd like to add especially from your the business client's perspective in their adjustment perhaps to a lot more transactions online?
Well, yeah, so even before the pandemic hit, I think Max and Karl can agree that banks in general, financial institutions in general, have encouraged our clients to transition to more automated virtual type of transactions. If it's through, like for a commercial client where they use their remote deposit capture rather than coming through the drive-through, online banking, transferring from one account to the other, or even taking a picture of their check, through the mobile app. So we've encouraged that before the pandemic hit, but obviously there's those clients that were resistant to going that route, and so we've been working very closely with them. They can call us. We're there to help them, walk them through the process. Again, like Max said, I know with when we did the PPP loans, of course, we did everything through DocuSign, but other kinds of loan transactions, if they weren't comfortable in coming in and signing, of course, they'd make an appointment to come and sign loan documents. They could scan the loan documents back, or even if we had to go out and get a wet signature, we were more than willing to be accommodating to them. So I think this whole process has really allowed all of us to shine in terms of our responsiveness to our clients, and so that they know that we're there for them through the good times and the bad.
That's really great. I think that's a really great point, because there's, as you all are talking about transitioning and helping your clients move onto this online world, and certainly we are as well, there's another risk that perhaps people are fearful now, is the cybersecurity fear, right? There may be, in addition to not knowing how to utilize technology, is the fear that perhaps the technology is not necessarily secure. There's all these horror stories. So a person might not want to take a picture of a check and do that, even if it's available to them. So how are you, showing that empathy and that care for your clients, and not only helping them understand that transition, but calming their fears, aside from the public health issue, but calming their fears from the security perspective, that your systems and all of the things that you're utilizing are secure?
So, well, when we're communicating, especially when we're communicating with our clients via email, for whatever type of question they have, or if they're giving any type of information to our bank, we have it to where whenever we put confidential on the subject line, that automatically goes into security mode, and so we have that security wall up. And so that's one way of telling them, look, when we do this and you have to acknowledge and sign in to this secured website, that gives them a little bit of comfort level. But and even then, if some of them still aren't comfortable with that, like I said, we're more than willing to go out and physically pick up whatever documents they need. I mean, there was times where I meet them downstairs in the parking lot with our masks on, and I grab the documents from them, and or even go to their place of business. But it's a very real, especially with the security part, and with what's going on right now. A lot of phishing going on. We have security measures in place, especially like if we get an email from somebody that wants to say, oh, can you please transfer money from one account to the other for me, or I want to wire some money, we always make it an effort to call that client and make sure and verify that. And we know our customers enough to where, that doesn't really sound like them. And we'll call them up and say, did you send this email? And so, and I think you're going to see a lot more of that.
Very good. Thank you.
Yeah, I think I agree with Arlene. You know, we use the secure emails with our members so they can understand that the information is not available to the outside. But I think the other thing is just education. You know, educating the members or clients on what we are doing internally. But probably the bigger risk is how they're utilizing their system at home. So educating on them, what to watch for, what phishing scams are out there. Because since the pandemic started, there's a lot more of those scams going on now than there was prior to. And so it's educating them internally on what the credit union does, but also educating them on how they can protect themselves. Generally, financial institutions won't reach out to their members and ask them for account information. Generally, that's the first indication it's a scam. And so that education is key. And then making sure that we have the systems in place to make sure their data is secure. And the secure emails are one, and many other ways that will help them, the electronic signatures and others. So once again, it goes back to education, both what financial institutions do internally and then how they can protect their members. And
I'll just throw in here that you know, many of the ways that are traditionally thought of by consumers or members are actually, fraud is more prevalent using those methods. We have ways to authenticate our members thoroughly electronically with out-of-pocket methods, and our systems are have multiple layers of security built in. And so if one is somehow breached, it's just this interlocking system that makes it very, very difficult to gain access. You know, I've explained it to examiners in the past that really, you know, you've got a set of walls with concertina on it. You've got to get through a locked gate. If you get in there, there's a German Shepherd. You get to the door, it's got a deadbolt on it. There's an alarm system on the house, and so there's multiple layers that are alerting you to anything that changes in the system. We have internal penetration testing, external penetration testing, and the biggest risk that generally we see, and Karl talked about it, is human. It's a consumer, a customer, a member mistaking a scammer for something that's legitimate. Or an employee, okay? And so at TFCU, one of the things that we do is we have a constant set of tests that are both physical and virtual, where we are testing our employees for weakness to see if they're gonna fall for something. So they're sort of accustomed to that. They know that we're going to be trying to trick them with an email, with a phone call, social engineering, try to have somebody, you know, breach a particular area physically or convince them to using a variety of different tactics. And so they're rewarded for defending, right, in a variety of different ways. And because we're always testing, we've brought down that human error to negligible levels. And so that's a really important part of how I think all the financial institutions that you've got on the screen right now are doing to protect. And I think it's also a real benefit of local institutions. What Arlene and Karl and I can do that national and regional players can't is we know our consumers, we know the members, we know the customers. So that also allows for less fraud because we know these people, and our leaders know the membership, and so it allows for, it's less likely to have things like you've seen at some of, you know, I won't name any names, but there's some pretty big banks that have had some significant embarrassing sorts of situations because they're not from there. They don't really know the customers.
Yeah, and to piggyback on Max, of course, WestStar, that's one of our training in terms of security to all of our employees, multiple training on that. And we do the same thing where we'll send out emails and they're not legitimate emails, and to try and teach employees how to respond, and our level has been brought down as well.
Good. So I'd like to move on into a different question. We've talked a little bit about the PPP loans, but as in this process, did you design any new services or products in response to this that maybe PPP wasn't an answer for? Was there something else that you all provided, or like a different service or a product that you found was a need?
Well, at WestStar, and it really is the SBA. So we do quite a bit of SBA 7A loans, 504 loans. And actually what had happened was the SBA came in and is taken in through the CARES Act and is paying their monthly P&I payments for 6 months. So anybody that has a 7A loan or the 504 loan, which has really helped our customers' cash flow situation. We've also, if we have clients who concentrated in a certain industry that has been heavily impacted, we've offered deferment of P&I payments or interest-only payments, because we understand that they were performing well before this pandemic hit, and we understand that this was out of their control. So we have those programs where we're deferring the P&I payment, interest-only payments. And we're keeping in close contact with them, and we're telling them, we were there for you before all of this happened. We're here with you now, and we'll be there with you when all of this is over with.
Yeah, from a business standpoint, we were very similar. We do SBA lending, and so using some of their programs, as we talked about the PPP, we did try to be more proactive, much like WestStar, in trying to identify which of our business members might be impacted negatively because of the pandemic and the economic situation. And so tried to reach out to them, offered many of the same programs, if they wanted to do interest only, if they wanted to defer their payments for a period of time. In some cases, depending on the interest rate, looking at that and saying, do we need to assist in modifying the loan? And so working with them. And then on the consumer side, very, very similar in that we offered, in fact, for the first few months, we waived many of the late fees on loans. We did deferments, we did interest-only payments in some cases, skip-a-pays. But I guess the key with most financial institutions, they were really proactive and tried to identify who were the highest potential that might have a concern, whether it be business members that had maybe were in the restaurant industry, or our members or consumers from a retail standpoint that worked in restaurants or retail or other things. So reaching out and offering them products. And actually many of those we had in place for the consumers just because of all the times the government had their shutdowns. We had to have products in place to assist them during those time periods. And so many of those products we're able to bring back and modify them a little bit and then roll them back out to the members. But it's been very effective, and we've seen and we've heard a lot of positive from our members or consumers.
And I'll just say, for us, it was probably a little bit unique to the other two institutions on the call. We weren't in the SBA realm, so we had to ramp up to that quickly. We wanted to be able to help in the community, and there seemed to be some limitations on the amount of PPP that certain institutions would have based on their size. And so we didn't want our community to miss out because we weren't doing that. So we stepped into that gap. We have a really great business lending team, and they're very unselfish. They were literally up until the deadlines, Eastern Standard Time, to get things done for our members and non-members. We were able to create new memberships based on the PPP program, and help people out. Generally, our average loan size was $15,942. So it tells you we were helping really small business, and it helped them make payroll, and it helped them survive. Like what Carl and Arlene were saying, you know, we made a variety of different arrangements in terms of we understand what each business type is. So we understood that they were going to be struggling through, you know, whether it was going to be a month, 2 months, 3 months, or longer, and that exists, right? On the consumer side, it was because that's a much bigger part of our business. Lots of skip-a-pays. We made exceptions to our policies on it, where we had certain limitations on skip-a-pays on an annual basis. We were able to extend that because we wanted to make sure that we kept people in their cars. We kept people in their homes through forbearance and different loan modifications. And we continue to do that as we see that distress in place. We don't want that to harm people, particularly when it's a temporary situation that's outside of their control. We know that on the back end of this, the economy will likely be able to recover. It's just we need to take care of the health emergency. So very similar.
Thank you for that. So we've got a question from some folks in the audience, and we talked a little bit about this earlier, but with regards to the elderly population that are they able to, if they don't have access to the technology resources, what accommodations are they able to see at your branches? Are they able to make an appointment, or are they able to actually talk to someone there?
They're absolutely, they can make an appointment at any of our branches. They can call our customer service center and or call some of our personal bankers personally. So, and we would be able to help them get through that process. And also, even if they need help at the drive-through, somebody would be there willing to help them at the drive-through. The difference, like at WestStar, and I'm sure the other credit unions, is that it's not a 1-800 number that you call to ask for help. It's a direct line here to WestStar, and you can talk to a person immediately, and that makes a big difference.
It makes a huge difference. Thank you.
Yeah, very similar. We expanded a lot of our retail staff. We had to retrain a little bit and get them to work in the call center as well as some of the virtual settings. And so members who don't feel comfortable, whether it's because of their age or they don't have the technology, they can actually come in and make an appointment to sit down with a representative to address, you know, whether it be a loan or other things if they don't want to do it electronically. We do have employees who will go out in the drive-through and help individuals there if needed. Once again, we still try to meet the social distancing there, but anyone who does not feel comfortable or does not have the technology, they still can come to the credit union and have their account serviced and have access to their funds.
And it's virtually identical. You know, everything, like I mentioned earlier, is available. It's just the way that we're providing that access is a little bit different. If a member, we've had, you know, of course, some members that were really interested in face-to-face. Generally, upon having a conversation with them over the phone, their needs are met. So there's no need to meet face-to-face. Maybe they didn't know that there were other ways to go about it. And there's been a few cases, like I said, at every single branch where we agree to meet them at a certain time at a certain branch. We get them to sign physical paperwork because that's their preference, and that's okay too. We're here to meet members in the way that they need to be met. We also just want to make sure that we're protecting them and our team. We have a responsibility to both of those parties, and so I think especially in the beginning of this pandemic when things weren't well understood, you know, there was that risk of having people congregate together. Now I think our members are very understanding. They understand why we're doing what we're doing. They're patient with the process, and like Carl, we moved some of our other team members to remote-based support services so that there wouldn't be long waits for that.
Thank you. Very good. And similar, we had to do the same. Everybody at the onset, it seemed like the phones was where we needed everybody, and we moved, all of our folks into the call center. And that leads me into the last question that I have before we move into wrap up is, what adjustments or what needs have you seen from your workforce perspective? Is there something that the folks have had to learn new, like a new skill or an urgency in a specific area? And in addition to maybe some technical skills, have you also had to provide some other type of support for your employees? Speaking from our workforce, teaching people how to move into the call center and some new technical aspects is one thing, but we're also facing with the psychological, emotional thing of being in isolation, not being around one another, and just the sheer volume of the constant work and just the disruption itself is taking an emotional toll. And so we're having to deal with all of that from our workforce, and making sure that our workforce is not just physically healthy, but also emotionally and psychologically. Any comments on that?
Yeah, I guess I'll jump in on this one first. So of course they had to, we had quite a few people get retrained on call center type. They already understood our products and services because they worked in our branches, but interacting with people through a call center environment using those cues is a little bit different. So we made sure that they were able to do that. And then again, we were having to mobilize them to work from home. How do you ensure that you have the appropriate environment at home to be able to allow for that? And if not, that we could provide them with an isolated area at one of our TFCU facilities around the city in order to allow them to continue helping our members. Fear, anxiety, and handling uncertainty is what is continuing to impact, I think, everybody in the community. And it's related to, of course, the global pandemic. It's related to the economic recession, and it's related to a movement for racial justice that we're seeing across the country, and it's impacting various communities. And it's very, very important for us to recognize that that's deeply impacting a lot of people. And so this three-pronged crisis is causing a lot of anxiety and uncertainty. And so we have really just laid it out there. We talk about it. We communicate often, give access to ourselves so that people can really talk about what's on their mind. And we make it okay to talk about, hey, look, it's okay to feel that there is an anxiety right now. We've taken certain things off the table so that they wouldn't have to be worried about things like layoffs. We just said, look, don't worry about that, okay? Because some of them have a job, but maybe their spouse or their partner might have had their hours cut. So they've got personal fears going on, and we're asking them to help our members, right? So I think that there's that they're weighing those different anxieties. And then, of course, we've got company benefits that allow them to leverage professional help when they need that. And we've also got some informal things. So I have something called Max Café Por Favor, which is where we get together for coffee virtually on Zoom, and we talk about different topics. And one of the topics that we talked about was the pandemic. Another topic that we talked about was anxiety and uncertainty and how to handle it. And so we all had a very candid discussion back and forth on how do you manage that. And what we have found is generally planning and preparation is a really, really good antidote to that uncertainty and that anxiety. People don't like to feel like they're on a ship that has no direction, that has no rudder. They want to know that their leaders understand what's going on and that they're managing the situation to the best of their ability. And so we've I think done that from the very beginning, and given them a good feeling that we are doing everything possible to protect their health, to protect their jobs, to protect our members, and to protect the public. And I think they appreciate that. And when it comes to the issues around the social movement that's going on right now, we've also allowed open conversation and an open forum on that, because that's very important as well, is to make sure everybody's being listened to, everybody's being valued.
Thank you. Carl, did you want to?
I'll go ahead, Co. So from just everything that Max said is of course what our bank is doing, and the one thing that I know meant a lot to myself and to the employees of WestStar is when this pandemic first happened, Rick Francis assured all of us that our jobs are secure, and that just to give everybody that sense of comfort that that you're going to be okay, and that WestStar is here for the long haul. And then we transitioned into, again, reallocating our employees to make them feel safe. Of some people that the daycares were closed, the children were having to be educated, the schools were closed, and so we worked with everybody to where they could work remotely, get their job done, and be there for their family as well. One of the things that we did is when we jumped on doing these PPP loans is, like I had said earlier, we had to reorganize, and people that worked in our accounting area were now working on PPP loans. Everybody came together, and in fact, we, with regard to the workforce, we had reached out to some students from UTEP, and now they are interns here at the bank that have been hired to help us process the forgiveness portion of the PPP loans, and or if there is going to be a second round of PPP loans, of course, WestStar is going to be there for the community with that. We have some interns from UTEP, and in fact, one of the interns was recently hired to a full-time position as one of our credit analysts. So opportunities have opened up in the communities for the workforce.
Very good. Very great. Thank you.
Yeah, like WestStar and teachers, we actually have reallocated staff. So from a business standpoint, we've had individuals from retail help there, the call center, our virtual systems, as well as with the influx of mortgage refis. We've had people work in that area. So there's been a lot of retraining or training some additional skills to staff so they can work in other areas. I think that's been important to give us the flexibility to assist our members. I think from a standpoint of supporting staff like WestStar and TFCU, we told staff up front that no one was going to be furloughed. We're going to continue to allow them to work in other functions. If they couldn't, one gave them an option to work from home. Those that could work from home, those that couldn't, we allowed them to readjust in the offices to cover different areas. We actually, before the CARES Act came out, we set aside time for staff if they needed to, without charging their PTO or giving them extra PTO to handle daycare issues or illness issues. We've also tried to communicate a lot. We were having weekly meetings of our BCP team and then moved to bi-weekly. And after each meeting, we communicate information out to staff. We let them know resources. So on a regular basis, we identify resources in the community and communicate that out to staff. I will tell you one of the things that surprised me, and I guess it shouldn't have, is I requested feedback from staff on what were their biggest concerns. One was just the fear of COVID. The other one that was very high that I guess surprised me was that we have a lot of mothers working at the credit union. So now their child is home trying to do, their learnings from home and online, and then the mother's trying to actually be a full-time worker as well as trying to teach their children. And so trying to assist them and allowing them more flexibility, as well as going back and once again, finding resources in the community and letting them know what those resources are. Then reminding them we have like an EAP program and other resources that they need if they're really struggling and need some professional help. And so reaching out there has been very beneficial. I think the other thing that we probably haven't talked about yet is, we've really tried to move up our advocacy on some of these areas. For example, the PPP loans, as well as the forgiveness of the PPP loans. What's being talked about in Congress is $150,000 or less. We are truly advocating for that, because really when you look at the loans that we do, Max said his average was almost 15,000. I think we only have 2 or 3 loans over 150,000. And so many of these businesses will have a challenge trying to complete all the paperwork needed. So advocacy has been an important part of what many financial institutions are doing to try to assist their members and their clients.
Absolutely. With that one-page easy form, that's going to make a huge difference.
Very good. Very good.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I know I was on calls this week and last week and the week before with Senator Cruz's office, Senator Cornyn's office, and we've tried to get audience with others that we can just have that dialogue. So I'm glad Karl brought that up. I wouldn't have really thought about that, but we are constantly trying to advocate on behalf of our consumers here in the El Paso area on things that we know that they find really important. It's probably something most of our members and customers don't know that we do for them, but we try to act as a single voice on important issues that impact their lives every day.
Good. Thank you all so much for the time that you've spent with us. I don't see that we have any more questions from the audience. I think we covered a lot of various topics in just less than an hour. So thank you all for your insight. It was really interesting, and I'm really glad to see that a lot of the, even though we're in different industries, I'm in a social services industry, from a banking industry, a lot of the same things are, we're dealing with some of the same challenges. And it's still really with the best interest of our community in mind, and making those adjustments together and being patient with one another and helping each other learn, how to take that next step. And so I want to thank you all for the commitment that you have to this community, to your employees, to your clients, and to the business community. And obviously we want to thank the Chamber of Commerce for hosting us, allowing us to host and to have this conversation. And hopefully this helped the audience out there. If there's any businesses that heard that you have any additional questions about the PPP program or any future programs or legislation that gets passed in the future, and how you can benefit from that and how those things can help you, please don't hesitate to reach out to any of the organizations on the call today or the Chamber of Commerce. They are the connective tissue here, and they can put you in touch with them. And then if there's anything else that you all would like to share, please do so. But I want to thank you all for your time this morning.
I want to thank you, Leila, for taking an hour of your time to certainly get all of us together and provide a resource to the community. And certainly, I would just say anything related to business on the PPP side, if anybody needs that from TFCU, I want to give them this local number, 926-2518. That's anything that's PPP business related. We'd be happy to answer any questions and help them out.
Just thank you for your time, and as offered, anybody that has any questions, they can call our local number and talk to any of our business service representatives. And Leila, once again, thank you for your time and getting this set up.
Thank you.
Yes, I want to thank you, Leila, for facilitating this. I think it's so important that the Chamber is reaching out to our business community to give them this information. And like I said, WestStar, it was here with the initial round of PPP loans, and if we need to be there for the second round, we are. And you can, if anybody has any questions or need any assistance, our local number is 915-532-1000.
Very good. Okay, everybody. Thank you all for your time and have a great rest of the week and a great weekend. Stay safe, everybody. And we'll
Thank
see
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.